Erev Tov, good evening, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We anticipate Rosh Hashanah, the new Jewish year, as we turn in our prayer books, whether it's the flip book online or our paper copies here in the sanctuary, to page 358, as we join in singing the words from Psalm 27, Achat Sha'alti, again, page 358. And on page 343, we join in the words from Psalm 96, Shiru l'Adonai, Shir Chadash, let us sing a new song unto God. Page 344. We turn now to page 2 for the blessing of our Sabbath lights. If you've waited for this moment at home to light your Shabbat candles, I invite you to do so as we join together with our cantor in blessing those lights.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav של Shabbat.
We welcome Shabbat like a bride, like a queen, with the singing of Lecha Dodi, verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 that you find on page 20, remembering on the last verse to rise to greet the Sabbath bride. Again, Lecha Dodi on page 20.
יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבל, יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה, שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. איי לי לי, יאללה לה לה לך דודי, יאללה לה לה לקראת כלה, יאללה לה לה פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה, לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. איי לי לי, יאללה לה לה לך דודי, יאללה לה לה לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה, התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. איי לי לי, יאללה לה לה לך דודי, יאללה לה לה לקראת כלה, יאללה לה לה פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמונה עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, יאללה לה 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 לך דודי,
Shabbat Kala. Yalalai Pene Shabbat. Pene Shabbat Nekabela. Let's read together on page 27. Page 27. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, on ripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days, lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. Chatzi Kaddish is on page 26.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
ועלמא דברה חירותי וינליך מלכותי.
בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו אמן. יהי שמרה במברך לעולם עולם לעלמיה יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה שמי לקודשה
בריחו
לילה מן כה ברכתה ושירתה
תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן ביעלמה
ויאמרו
Amen. We rise.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך המבורך לעולם ועד. המבורך המבורך לעולם ועד.
Let's be seated and let's continue on page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chochma poteach sha'arim uvitvuna mishane itim umachalif et hazmanim umisader et hakochavim b'mishmeroteham barakia kirtsono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila. Adonai tzavaot shemo, el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל תאכל תשים ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני
Physically, spiritually, we rise for the Shema. We can be seated and let's continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם.
Top of page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt.
That there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness.
That there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedor b'kodesh, norati lot osef ele, norati lot osef ele, malechutecha לפני משה ומרים, זלי, אנו ויאמרו, Baruch atah Adonai Israel.
On page 42, we give thanks for the night and its rest and the promise of peace that it brings.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. V'shmor tzeitzenu uvoenu lechaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Page 44.
Yismechu me'malechutecha shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu me'malechutecha shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Am mikadeshei Mikadeshei Shevi Shabbat Kulam Yisbeu Ve'yitanku mitu v'chashabat. Yismechu b'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Uvashvi'i ratzita bo v'kidoshto Shabbat. Chemdat Yamir oto karata Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Zecher Lema'aseh v'reshit Shabbat. Zecher Lema'aseh v'reshit Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat
Physically, spiritually, we rise for the Amidah, Adonai Sfatai on 46, Avot V'Imahot on 48.
Adonai Sfatai Tiftach Ufi Agitahilatecha Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zacher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi geula livnei b'neihem, lima'an shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah, atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atarav lehoshia, morid hata, mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofei cholim, u'maitir asurim, umekayim emunato lishenei afa micha mocha bal gevurot umido melech melech mimit umechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman ata l'chayot hako, Baruch ata Adonai, Mechayei hako. Ata kadosh shimcha kadosh, Ukdoshim b'chol yom yihalelucha selah, Baruch ata Adonai, Ha'el hakadosh.
We may be seated. We'll continue at the bottom of page 55 and on the bottom left-hand side on the pages thereafter. Disturb us, Adonai. Ruffle us from our complacency. Make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness, and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Shock us, Adonai. Deny to us the false Shabbat, which gives us the delusions of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred. Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears.
Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality.
Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and to do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, shotcha levadacha b'yirah na'avod. When we behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and stars that you have set in place, what are we humans that you are mindful of us, we mortals that you take note of us? You made us little less than divine, adorned us with glory and majesty. You gave us dominion over your handiwork, laying the world at our feet. How majestic is your name throughout the earth. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tosim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tosim אתה הוא מלך אדון, לך השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון, לך השלום. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת וכושר בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל ושלום.
On page 253, we take time to think of those who are in need of healing, a healing of body, a healing of spirit, those around the world suffering from this pandemic, those suffering in Afghanistan, those suffering in our own streets, and those who we know are in need of healing, who are in our own lives, who are in our inner circle. And so I ask, if you are thinking of someone who's in need of healing, if you are following along on Facebook or YouTube, if you wish to share that name in the comments below, I invite you to do so. And if you're in the sanctuary and have a name that you wish to share, I invite you to say that name out loud as my eyes scan around the room. For those we mention out loud, for those we mention in our hearts, together we pray for healing.
מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. מי שברך אמותינו
Adonai. Suri Vegoali Vegoali.
Let's rise now for our Seder Kriyat Torah, our service for the reading of Torah.
Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, olam, olam u'min. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, olam, olam.
We can set aside our Sidurim. We can find a Chumash somewhere, hopefully within arm's reach. We're going to be in Parashat Ki Tavo, Deuteronomy 26, beginning with verse 1, in our Plowed Chumashim in the Sanctuary. That's on page 1350. For those of you at home, 26, verse 1, Deuteronomy, Parashat Ki Tavo. This is the first fruits offering. A little funny to be reciting that which we recite at Pesach here as we're anticipating Rosh Hashanah, but that is where it falls in our text. The giving of the first fruits after entering the land and every year thereof. We're going to be reading the first 10 verses, or actually not even. We're going to be reading the first 3 verses. So we're not quite going to get to the verses that we know so well from the Haggadah, my father was a wandering Aramean. You'll have to come to Torah study on Zoom tomorrow for that. But those are our verses. And for our Aliyah, I'm going to ask all of us to join in. All of us who are in person to go ahead and join in the Aliyah. So we can all rise for that if we are so motivated. And we'll join in together. A 1, a 2, a 3.
Baruch et Adonai Hamborach,
Baruch Adonai Hamborach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. We can be seated. We'll follow along as we would like. V'haya ki tavo el haaretz asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach nachala v'yirishta v'savata ba. So when you go into the land that Adonai your God has given to you as an inheritance and you settle in it, v'lakachta merishit kol pri ha'adama asher tavi me'artzacha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach. You will gather up the first fruits of all that the land that Adonai your God has given to you. The samta vitna, and you're going to put it in a basket. V'halachta el hamakom asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha lishkan shamo sham, lishaken shamo sham. And you're going to carry it, you're going to bring it to the place where God is going to make God's own name known. That's Jerusalem, by the way, but we'll run with that. Uvata el hakohen asher yihiyeh biyamim hahem. And you're going to go to whoever the priest is at that time. V'amarta elav, and you're going to say to him, Higadati hayom ladonai Elohecha ki vati el haaretz asher nishba Adonai lavotenu latet lanu. I have been instructed to come this day before Adonai our God and who has brought us to this land as a promise to our ancestors to give it to us. We can rise for the blessing after, and will remain standing as we prepare to return the Torah to the Ark. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe.
I want you to take a moment. I want you to take a moment and reflect on the best gift you ever received. Just think for a moment about the best gift you ever received. Was it a childhood present? Was it something given to you as an adult? Was it an object or an experience? Was it a person who came into your life? Or was it something intangible, not really a thing at all, but a relationship, an encounter, a conversation? Now, I want you to think about the best gift you have ever given. Think about the best gift you have ever given. Just take a moment and reflect on that. When you gave it, was it a surprise? Did it involve careful planning, some thoughtfulness? Or did you find that the gift you gave was only the best? It only turned out to be the best much later, and in the moment, you didn't think very much of it at all. Why do we give gifts? What is the purpose of gift giving? It's an act of generosity, to be sure, and many of us love to give, love the experience of making somebody else smile, even if that person is a stranger. Think of how many of us participate in the gift drive at the winter holidays for the families engaged with Family Promise, for example. Receiving, of course, can be a little bit of a different story. Many of us are not sure what to do when the generosity of others is directed at us instead of vice versa. But on top of that, there is this predicament that sometimes we don't fully understand or appreciate the gifts we're given until much later. That volume of poetry that didn't speak to us as a teenager years later becomes well-worn and dog-eared. The garish memento that gets put away in the back of a cabinet becomes a discussion piece at holidays years later. And to be more metaphorical, the conversation, the advice, the lesson that we failed to take to heart at one point in our lives becomes for so many of us a great gift of wisdom that we rely upon years later. Perhaps, as we contemplate these gifts with the advantage of hindsight, we wonder if our expressions of gratitude were sufficient at the time, or if there's some way we can express that gratitude more fully now. In the portion I just read from, and frankly in all of Deuteronomy, as Rabbi Shai Held points out, the whole thing is very focused on gifts. The whole book. Or rather, it is focused on the giver of gifts, the ultimate giver of gifts, that being a gracious God. God brings our people to a land flowing with milk and honey, a place where our ancestors could dwell in peace and prosperity. But the text is also concerned with gratitude or imagined lack thereof. There is a deep concern, there is a deep and profound worry in Moses' voice. If we could imagine Moses, his voice cracking a little bit as he's saying all of this, that somehow Israel will get soft, that they will enter the land, that they will benefit from its bounty, from God's bounty, and then forget that such bounty isn't due to anything that they did or any special quality that they have, but rather emerges from God's graciousness. So we find one of the oldest rituals that we continue to practice in some way, shape, or form as a people, this first fruits ritual. We are commanded, as you heard earlier, to bring the first fruits to the place God will make the divine name known, which is Jerusalem, give them to the priests, and then recite a formula, which we know so well from our Haggadot, from our family Seder experiences. My father was a wandering Aramean. He descended to Egypt in meager numbers, grew to become a great nation, was oppressed until God redeemed us with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and now I come to bring this gift in acknowledgement of God's own gift. Even the Torah understands that this ritual, this recitation, is a ritual of self-awareness. That God, the giver of gifts, doesn't want or need it. What's God going to do with a basket of fruit? Or wheat? Or whatever you're putting in the basket? But it's us, who need to retell our history, to recognize where we come from and where our gifts come from. It is true that we are blessed, but if we don't acknowledge how we became blessed, our sense of awe and appreciation might evaporate, replaced with a hardness of spirit, a kind of spiritual dullness, a failure of gratitude. As the Christian theologian John Goldingay writes in his book, Old Testament Theology, the people must keep alive the memory of oppression and deliverance, because otherwise the wonder of their possessing the land may be lost. So it is with us, that if we forget the moment that we experience the giving and the receiving of the gift, then the gifts themselves just become dross. They lose their value. We are right around 10 days to ending the year 5781, which has been for many of us a truly difficult and challenging year. but still one filled with gifts given and received. And we may, at various points this year, have failed to recognize and appreciate those gifts in the moment. Before we enter 5782, it would be good if we reflected on the gifts that we have in our lives. Reflect on which ones we choose to carry into a new year, which ones will give us the strength to move forward and continue to care, to express our own generosity to those who need it, and gratitude when such generosity is directed in our direction, when it is pointed toward us. With 10 days remaining, let's reflect on those gifts and let those gifts teach us to better share our love for one another in this coming year. For it is only through that love, only through that sharing, that we will enter it with blessing. May it be so, as we say. Amen. We can turn back to our Sidurim. We can turn back to our prayer books to page 282 as we rise for Aleinu L'Shabeach.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tet gedulah liyotzeh b'reishit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, v'lo osamanu kimishpachot ha'adama, shelo osam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
We may be seated. And we turn to page 294. Page 294. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. God gives, God takes away. Blessed be the name of God. If you are in the first 30 days of your mourning, the period of Shaloshim, wherever you are, I invite you to rise at this time. And if you are in the first year of your mourning, I invite you to rise. And if on this Shabbat you observe a yahrzeit, the anniversary of a loved one's passing, I invite you to rise wherever you are. And if it is your custom to rise to remember those whom only we can remember, the martyrs of our people, those who have died from injustice, those who have died from this pandemic, our members of our armed forces who died protecting the innocent this week, I invite you to join with me on page 294 as we join in Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Leolam Olamei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitalev V'yithalal Shemei D'Kudusha B'richu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechamata Ta'amiran B'alma V'yimru Amen. Yehi Shalama Rabbah Min Shemaya V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael V'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, huya se shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We remember Inez Rosenbaum, Ralph Lowy, Alfio Aloisi, Tilly Benson, Phyllis Bowman, Louis Buden, Samuel Charon, Bruce D. Coben, Harry Epstein, Harry Fishman, Dr. Solomon Harrison Gellender, Abe Gilbert, Richard Kane, Norma Keller, Maurice Klein, Elaine Klug, Isidore Levin, Stanley Lukoff, Larry Moelis, Herman Okanow, Elton Resnick, Olga Schenker, Ethel Tabachnik, Shirley Weiner, and Peter Wright. And if you are following along at home and have a name to add, feel free to add that on Facebook, on YouTube, in the comments below. For all those we have named, we say, Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. Amen. We may be seated. Many thanks to Rachel Greenspan for helping monitor our live stream this evening to make sure that it is running and streaming and live in all of those different ways. Following this service, those of us gathered in the sanctuary have the opportunity to have a little bit of an oneg on the go at the door as we depart. Those of us online, if we wish to hop on the Zoneg link just to wish each other Shabbat Shalom and check in, it'd be nice to be able to see everybody's faces. Tomorrow, Torah study at 9:30 on Zoom. The adult ed link is on the front page of the website. And while the Slichot registration is closed for Reva Brown's program, which should be wonderful, our service, of course, is still open. The Slichot service, which will be starting around 8:30 tomorrow. Program at 7, service at 8:30, either in person or online. We will be streaming that service from our sanctuary as well. Kabbalat Shabbat, our first one of the new school year, this coming Friday after, the first Friday in September, one more Torah study, and then it's Rosh Hashanah. And you can find the High Holiday section of our website full to the brim of all kinds of wonderful things, including our last Wednesday night adult learning program of 5781 as we look at the study a little bit the idea of shofar before we get to hear the shofar, and our second day discussion, all of our services, all of our programs, all that's going to be going on, that you can experience in person, virtually, and pretty much any way that you would want to. Finally, it's wonderful to be able to be back on the Bima with Cantor back on the Bima, both of us back on the Bima after a summer of getting settled in and camp and travel and all kinds of other things. We are back together, all of us as a congregation, back together. And so we'll join in singing a song that you will not find in your prayer books. We return. It's become our custom to sing that as we anticipate Slichot and the new year. And we'll bring Rob Napper back up onto the Bima to give us a tekiyah at the end of it. So let's all rise as we join together.
We We return again to truth. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem Yelalai lai 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 We return
We return.
We return
We return. We return. Return again.
We return
We return.
We return
We return. We return. Return again and again
to you
to you. To you. To you. We return again to you. Hope in God, be strong and of good courage. O hope in God.
Tekiah.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.